Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Pepin, NHL Talk. I'm Thomas Pepin, and let's talk about the NHL. Today we're doing a recap of the second round. Another crazy round. These playoffs have been really crazy. Well, at least in my opinion, nothing's gone as I've expected. But anyways, we're going to do a recap of the second round, and that's going to include just going over how the rounds went, or sorry, how the series went in general, and then just talking about my predictions versus the results. So just one sec to pull up the last thing here. All right, so I'm good to share now. Second round is here. So, what should we do first? Yeah, I guess we'll start off. I forget what I did last time, but we'll start off by comparing my predictions to the actual results, and then we'll go through this series. So, on the right-hand side, you'll see the predictions that I had, yeah, we might as well just go in the order that it's written here. So Vegas versus Edmonton, I chose Edmonton. The data indicated that it was going to be Edmonton, and it turned out being Vegas. So that's one wrong. How did I rate that? 0 for 1 so far. And then Dallas versus Seattle. Data indicated, data indicated Dallas, and it was Dallas, so it's 1 for 2. Carolina, New Jersey. New Jersey was my choice. Data indicated New Jersey, and it was Carolina. So I was 1 for 3. Then last one, Toronto versus Florida. Data indicated Toronto. I picked Florida, and it was Florida. So it was 2 for 4. So just to compare to the first round, I was 3 for 8. Second round, 2 for 4. So not not very good results for my predictions. Man, like I said, none of this has gone as I expected, but anyways. So we'll start off with what you see on the left here. So we'll go in this order. Toronto versus Florida. So it went, 3 games up for Florida. Toronto got 1, and then Florida closed it in the 5th game. Now this one, I think I watched every game. Did I watch every game? No, maybe I missed one. Anyways, I watched most of this series. The other ones I don't think I saw it. I only saw a couple of Edmontons. But anyways, this kind of went better than I expected in terms of my prediction, at least. So I was thinking maybe, I forget what I said in my preview and predictions, but if I remember correctly, and if I didn't say it, what I was thinking was something like 6 games that Florida would win. I thought Toronto would do a bit better. I mean, it was really close, so 2 goals difference the first game, 1, 1, 1, 1. So it was very close. And to be honest, I would have, from my preseason predictions, would have predicted a result similar to this. So these two teams are very evenly matched based on the data that I rely on for my sports betting that I do and stuff like that. I knew it would be really close, and I thought Florida would win, and they did win. And really, in the end, it was exactly as close as I expected. So, but close in terms of the games, not close in terms of the number of games, or sorry, results of the games versus number of games. So, so in that regard, my prediction was pretty close, or what I would have predicted was pretty close. I was right in the end with the series result, but I thought Toronto would maybe have gotten one more game, and definitely not losing all of the first three games. So anyway, so that was very surprising to me. In the end, can I even check this? I don't think I really can. But anyways, I forget which game. What's his face? Samsonov got injured, but I think it was in Game 4. I don't think it would have made any difference. Yeah, goaltending I don't think was the issue for Toronto. They just weren't scoring. Like, I mean, their top players didn't do anything in this round, and I mean, they need to carry the team given how much money is allocated to them and how little money is allocated to the rest, which means that the rest of the roster is not as strong. So in this case, they were actually quite good because of navigating cap rules and being able to afford everybody. But yeah, in any case, their top players, even the guys they picked up, essentially did nothing. So, or at least the major guys they picked up. So just really poor showing for Toronto. I was surprised at how well, I should say, just before I get into this, I can't really talk about the other series as much in depth as this one because I watched all these ones, or most of them, whereas the other ones I didn't. But what I was going to say is with Florida, man, their puck management is really strong. They make a lot of very smart plays, low risk. It's they get their outlet passes out of their zone. They carry it up. If they can't get it in, they dump it in, fight for the puck. Like, I mean, very meat and potatoes hockey. And they do it consistently. Like, a guy I was very impressed with was Tkachuk, because he would, if he didn't have something, he didn't try to force it. He could have tried to do some like fancy plays and you know, get some fancy goal, but it was very meat and potatoes, especially for him. And I think that was it kind of is most what's the word I'm looking for? Exemplified? Am I saying that right? Anyways, Matthew Tkachuk does the best job of, he's the best example of that puck management. It's very, very effective, very strong. And the reason I'm saying him as the best example is because he could try to be offensive and, you know, do all these fancy plays and stuff, but he never really did. I mean, I think he tried one between the legs thing, but it was the right move anyways. I think it was him, or was it Bennett? Anyways, it doesn't really matter, and it's in low risk situations. Like, they just were really, really effective. So if they can keep doing this kind of stuff and maintain this kind of strict adherence to, like, I'm assuming this is their strategy, and what they practice and all that kind of stuff. But if they can stick to it, man, can they ever... They're going to be effective and very difficult to beat, I think. Because they got through... Well, I mean, Boston, like I said in my first preview, I'll end the recap. Boston wasn't quite as strong as their season indicated, in my opinion. But they beat Boston, and Boston was a strong team. They beat Toronto, which was an even more difficult team, I think, to beat, in theory, at least on paper. I'm talking more of the regular season. I guess Boston's would have been difficult in the playoffs, and then Toronto not as much. But in any case, two very challenging teams, just with the underlying data as far as I'm concerned. And man, if they can pull it off against those teams, they can do it against anybody. And I mean, Carolina is a good team, but of all teams to go through, for them to face to be able to move on, I mean, it's the right matchup for them to do it. But anyways, we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we do the previews. But yeah, long story short, very effective work by Florida. Very disciplined in terms of their puck management and their play. I forget what their penalties were like. I remember that image. What was it? That Maurice did or something like that. So lopsided in terms of penalties. They made good on their power plays. So they just got to be disciplined. They got to be careful in terms of penalties. That's an important factor for them. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So long story short, very effective performance by Florida. The complete opposite, you could argue, for Toronto. I mean, they played okay in terms of like we saw with the goal differential. But like, I don't know how many times I would hear the fans cheering when they'd see some fancy move by a player where he does some spinorama or whatever, some good deke. And it's like, it feels like that's what their team was, is just a bunch of showboaters that cared more about how they looked and how their stats were than their team performance. It's just, I thought it was like, it was clear that they didn't really want to win. They wanted to play fancily, or they wanted to look good, or however you want to kind of put it. Just weak, lack of effort, I would say. Lack of pushback. Just really poor, given how good their team is supposed to be, or at least was on paper. So anyways, like I said, not surprised about the series outcome. Surprised about how easily Florida did it. Again, it was a close series in terms of differential, but yeah, in terms of just games, I mean, Florida easily won the series. So, so I would say this is probably, it is my most accurate prediction from the round, because the rest I either got wrong or wasn't close to what I predicted. So anyways, so that's for the first series there. Now, like I said, that's the only one really that I can speak to in great depth. The rest are kind of going to be more quick and simple. So Carolina wins in 5 games, like Florida. Really lopsided in their wins for the most part. So 5-1, 6-1, and then they lose 8-4, which is crazy. And then 6-1 and 3-2 in overtime. So I thought Carolina wouldn't have been able to produce that much offense. Now, is it that that the goaltending wasn't good enough. I mean, I would have to go and check the stats, but it's difficult to narrow it down for the series, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds. It doesn't really matter that much, but yeah, I mean, you can't let in 5, 6 goals, 4 goals, 6 goals. You can't let that number of goals in. They had the young guy that wasn't very experienced, so I'm not surprised. Did they bring another goalie in? Give me a sec. I'm going to pull things up just briefly to have a look. Does it... Oh, this is a full recap, so I don't want that. Whatever. Anyways, it's not that important. But, yeah, that's the thing about riding a hot goalie for too long. You got to be careful. So as soon as things turn, you have to get the other guy in net so that you have a chance of the other goalie stabilizing the series or winning the series or both. So anyways, they were riding their young goalie that was on a roll, and I mean, in the end it didn't work out, and you got to be, we'll talk about it in a sec, but same kind of thing with Edmonton. But anyways, kind of thing, but we'll cover that in a sec. So anyways, I just didn't think Carolina was going to be able to score this much. They had the 3 major injuries: Pacioretty, Teravainen, and Svechnikov. And so those are like their Aho's I put up there, one of their top scorers, but beyond him, I mean, they're like the most critical for scoring. So for them to not be in the lineup and they produce that many goals, I mean, very impressive. So, yeah, so just really surprised with how easily Carolina rolled over New Jersey. I thought it was going to be, I forget what I said again in the previews and my predictions. I thought it was going to be closer, and if anything, I would have predicted the reverse, where New Jersey kind of dominated. So very surprised, very impressed, in effect, with Carolina's performance. Again, didn't see the games, but at least from the outcomes. So for next round, I mean, man, had they not won this clearly, I would have said Florida had a really good shot. But I mean, it's going to be close, and Carolina, they might be for most people, they would be the favorite, but I might even predict them as the favorite. But anyways, we'll get into that tomorrow. So, long story short, was wrong in my prediction by a lot. Yeah, I mean, Carolina, man, of all seasons, it's the same story with Florida. Of all teams you would want to get down to in the end, there's no extremely difficult teams to play against, at least I would argue. I think the Islanders would have been very difficult to play against had they gotten further. Who else was there? Who else? Tampa, New York Rangers. I mean, anyways, where are we here? Yeah, so I mean, in terms of route to winning a cup in the East, it's pretty wide open, and I would argue it's the same in the West, but that's where we're gonna, I guess, move to now. So Dallas, Seattle. So Seattle wins game 1, then Dallas, Seattle, Dallas, Seattle, Dallas. Goes to 7 games. I know in my prediction, I'm pretty sure I said 5 games or something like that for Dallas. Man, did Seattle ever put up a fight. Very impressive, surprising to me. Uh, Again, in this series, didn't see any of the series of the games at least. um, but yeah, in terms of so Seattle wins in overtime, 2 goal difference. Dallas, Seattle wins 7-2. That's a lot. Then Dallas reverses it, repeats basically the next game, reverses in a repeat. I mean, so essentially they were basically evenly matched, which Seattle did better earlier in the season. So maybe in theory it's not supposed to be surprising, but I just thought Seattle was having kind of an anomaly of good performance. I mean, it's not far outside of the realm of their capabilities, but I didn't even think they would make the playoffs. So, very impressive season for Seattle. Maybe I underestimated them. We'll see what the data says after I take a look at this season's results when I compile everything for next season. But in any case, yeah, very surprised with how well Seattle did in both the playoffs, the season, the playoffs, and in this season or series as well. So this one I was pretty far off on my prediction. It's the next closest because it's the only other one I got right. But yeah, pretty impressive by Seattle. Dallas isn't the strongest of teams. Like I had them as a bubble team anyways, so it's not like I said, the gap between the two teams is not that massive, but I just thought Dallas was going to be more stable in the series, and as a result would dominate the series. Anyways, so like I said before, I got the outcome right, number of games wrong. It's very close. Seattle put up a good fight, so yeah, so that's that. And then last one here, Vegas versus Edmonton. What a crazy playoffs in my opinion. So, yeah, so Vegas wins 6-4 game 1, Edmonton 5-1, Vegas 5-1, Edmonton 4-1, Vegas 4-3, Vegas 5-2. So, I mean, very back and forth, even series. I did correctly predict that the series was going to be close. I also said that it was basically a coin toss, and it was, in fact, I would argue, a coin toss because, I mean, you look at the results, they go back and forth very evenly. If I had to take a guess, the goal differential for the series is near even. And it's just, I thought Edmonton was going to be able to pull it out just from the difference in scoring capabilities. But the problem is and this is something that Edmonton's discovered, is if you're not getting your scoring from your top players, you're pretty much screwed. So you rely too heavily on your top scorers, and then the rest, if they're not producing and the top scorers don't produce, you're screwed. And then so Vegas, they're very well-rounded, deep lineup. All lines are very capable, both forwards and defense. I would argue their Achilles heel is their goaltending, or in theory could have been, should have been. In this series, it wasn't that great. And that's regardless of who played, even though Brossoit got injured, the same kind of thing from Hill. Wasn't that fantastic? But good enough. And the team was good enough. They produced. That's the thing about how well the reason for the outcome is all their players equally, as far as I recall in terms of stats, very well-rounded performance from all players. So that's the difference maker is Edmonton has their top scorers, and when they're not scoring, then nobody's scoring. So, Draisaitl was a standout, but what does it matter? It's like the same thing I was kind of saying with Toronto. If your top players aren't performing, Toronto was different because they actually had depth from their pickups at the trade deadline, whereas Edmonton didn't really pick anything up of any significance. And so Edmonton's like what Toronto would have been had they not picked up their extra players. And Toronto probably could have done way worse or maybe better. You never know. Maybe they relied on more, you would have performed better. Who knows? But in any case, just you need depth. You need people to step up during the playoffs outside of the top players, and just nobody did. So that's the story for Edmonton. They need to get depth or better team defense or goaltending or all of the above. Now, the one thing I really did want to comment on, and I said this in the preview, what Edmonton should have done that they didn't do in the first round and didn't do in the second round was get Campbell into games because you don't know when you're going to need to rely on him. And especially because Skinner has no track record. He had one decent season. I think this is his only season of any large number of games. And even that's a point right there. He's not used to playing that kind of number of games. Never has played in any critical games like this. So was it the pressure? Was it the workload? Was it both? Again, ignoring the team impacts. He just wasn't good enough. And sometimes it's not so much about playing necessarily all that great. It's about winning games. And that's the thing for the coach's choice of who's going to play in net. So, yeah, you could be super confident in Skinner's play in general, and to have thought he had a good season and, stick with a guy and, show confidence in him. That's all great, but it means nothing if you're not winning the games. So it's like I forget if I showed the stats, but I know I spoke about this previously on my channel. The gap between starting goaltenders and backups is like nothing now. There's like a handful, literally like 5 or 6 goalies that are elite in the NHL. And then pretty much the rest are more or less equal backups and starters. Or goalies that share the net or whatever you want to call them, 1A, 1B kind of goalie things. So it's just, especially nowadays, you need to roll with both your goalies when things aren't going well during the season and especially in the playoffs, because you gotta find a way to turn things around and get a win or run a string of wins. Campbell played decent in the time that he came in, very minimal amount, but just think if they did it earlier. So what I was going to say is we know that the decision, what's the coach's name? Woodcroft, I think. We know that his decisions were wrong because the outcome tells you. Edmonton lost the series. His decisions were wrong, at least from a goaltending perspective. Now, again, if you want to argue team defense is actually the problem, and if that was correct, then the goaltending would have been sufficient, whatever. In any case, sometimes, just shaking things up, there's so many factors at play with who's going to win a series, which is why predicting is so difficult. that, I mean, so yeah, I mean, who knows what some other changes would have resulted in, but at the very least, we know that what did happen was wrong because they lost the series. So, in my opinion, I mean, what I did say was if Skinner didn't win the first two games, then bring Campbell in for the third. They didn't win the first two games. They should have brought Campbell in. Would I have been more right than, or would my recommendation have resulted in a better outcome? Who knows? Maybe they would have gotten swept. Maybe I would have been completely wrong. Well, they couldn't have gotten swept because they would have won the second game, and I would have said put Campbell in for the third. But in any case, yeah, I mean, at the very least, it would have been approximately the same. In best case, they could have won the series. So that's the thing is, and it's like I've said, so in my management strategy for NHL GMs that I came up with, again, I've never managed a franchise. I haven't been a coach. I mean, take everything with a grain of salt. But what I recommend is rolling 3 goalies. And it's for these kind of reasons. So when one goalie's not going, go to the next. And if that goalie's not going, go to the next. So it gives you 3 shots or 3 bullets in the chamber, however you want to put it. Where, I mean, what could have happened is in the first round, they maybe went with Campbell, and then Campbell went on a roll, and they got through both series. Or it could have went Skinner, Campbell, and then some other third goalie, and then they get through. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Or maybe it would go Skinner, Campbell, other goalie, Skinner, and then they get through a couple rounds. In any case, it's like I said, the gap between a backup, one of even the lower backups, and one of the better starters, that it's not one of the elite ones, they're essentially all the same. So why not just find somebody who wins? It doesn't really matter the stats. It's all about outcomes, and especially in the playoffs, you lose 4, you're out of a round. So it's just, I think it was really poor. He made poor decisions in both the first round and second round when it comes to goaltending, at the very least. And I mean, I saw enough of this series to say that Skinner just wasn't good enough. The team wasn't that great either, especially the depth. But they needed to go with Campbell, even just as an effort to try to pull something off, because clearly going with Skinner just wasn't good enough. So again, there's so many different factors at play that, yeah, maybe I'm emphasizing goaltending too much, but who knows? I mean, maybe going with Campbell, maybe the team is more concerned. So let's say they're more confident with Skinner, regardless of the outcome so far. And then they go with Campbell, who they're less confident about. Well, maybe they're going to work harder to protect him, which is going to produce the result of winning the games and then eventually the series. I mean, like I said, there's so many different factors, but just they should have given him a shot. There's no way they should have been so close with LA, and then, and they lost to Vegas, and then they didn't get through. So, or I should, in my opinion, with LA, and like I said, I mean, this would have been a coin toss no matter what, but they should have played Campbell, and I think that's probably a game changer. But I mean, again, unless you're playing with all the variables and seeing the results afterwards, you don't really know. So Anyways, and then so yeah, as I mentioned, data indicated Edmonton. I predicted Edmonton, and it was Vegas. But like I said, it was a coin toss, so I'm not surprised. I would say I'm probably as close in my prediction for that series as I was in Dallas. The Carolina one, I was the furthest off, I think. So, anyways, so just I don't know of anybody. I mean, I haven't looked in any great depth at other people's predictions, but I would guess that very few predicted the first round to go as it did and the second round to go as it did. Because, man, my preseason predictions and likewise my playoff predictions just before the playoffs started, not even close. And I mean, I think I said this last round. I think the league's just gotten so evenly matched that, man, it's going to be difficult to predict. And so the funny thing is well, as I mentioned previously, I do sports betting, and in particular futures for Stanley Cup winner. And so I do my predictions in the preseason, typically almost wholly immediately after the end of the season. And I mean, it doesn't really matter when I do my predictions because I'll verify them in the preseason, and they typically they're pretty much dead on anyways. So, because you know how much cap space they have, you know what they could add, and then you can kind of predict how good the team actually will turn out being. So you don't really need to see the free agency outcomes to be able to predict next season. But anyways, yeah, I mean, my predictions when it comes to betting, man, it's the worst season I've had for my betting since I started. The only team that I have as one of my favorites left is Florida. Otherwise, I mean, that's the only one where I have anything but a bad outcome for a return on my bets. So, thankfully, I still have one of four, but I mean, that's all I really got in the end to make any money this season. So, yikes for me. But I'm not all is lost because I still have one of four, and you only need them to be one of two, and you only need them to be one of those two in the end. So we'll see what happens with Florida in the end. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But yeah, just long story short, I could not have predicted the first round, second round, these playoffs. It is wild. And so, I mean, like I said, we'll talk more about this tomorrow when I give my predictions for the next round. But brutal, brutal outcomes, and very difficult to predict. So we'll leave it there. So if you like this stream, hit the like button, share with your friends, subscribe, turn on notifications. Otherwise, channel homepage has upcoming streams. Will be 1 p.m. 3 p.m. Eastern on the days that I do stream. And so tomorrow is going to be 3 p.m. Eastern. Oh yeah, so I was going to talk about I was going to do NHL 23 streams, and so I am ready for, I think, both. But I'm only going to start Whoops, did I do the... Sorry, one sec. What was I going to say? Yeah, so I'm only going to do the franchise mode for this coming round, and I'm going to start on Saturday. I'll do. Should I talk about this now? Yeah, I guess I will briefly. So the most difficult part in for me in doing the franchise mode is when I start the franchise mode, I like to make a team my own, and so it requires a whole bunch of transactions and setting things up. So as like baselines for like ticket prices and all that jazz. And so anyway, so I did all of that ahead of time, saved that. I also saved before doing all the trades, so I'll be able to show you that I didn't cheat. I can show all the trades. I won't show all of them, but I'll show most of them so you know that I didn't cheat to put together my franchise. So, like I said, so I did all that stuff ahead of time. I start at the beginning of the season. I've simmed through the preseason after having done all that stuff, like getting coaches, setting prices, and whatever. Yeah, so I'm all set up to go. I'll go through all that stuff that I did. So it's going to be more of like an introduction on Saturday where I go through what I did, why I did it, strategies, and things like that. And then I'll probably get a portion, maybe a little bit, a few games of the season started. It's going to be 3-hour long streams, which are pretty long, but for doing franchise mode, I mean, it's not that long given how much I get into it. So yeah, so I'll get into the season, I'm sure, to some degree or in some amount. But that's kind of the plan for Saturday. So starting that series, and then the intention is, I hope, every week all the way through to the start of next real NHL season, I'll be doing franchise mode 3 days a week, 3 hours a piece, and I should be able to get through a 25 season or 25 seasons as GM. I haven't tried to go that deep yet. All I've done is prep work to be able to start streaming. I think I've done at most 3 seasons. And anyways, I've done really, really well, actually. I think I won Presidents in my first season. I think I was like second place in the next season. And then was doing really well in the third season. And then I stopped because I thought everything was fine. And I was ready to go. So anyway, so I think it's going to be really cool and interesting. And maybe people might learn things. I mean, I haven't played NHL as a series since 2014, so almost 10 years. But so I mean, I'm sure there's things I'll learn as I go. But generally, I mean, I do quite well. I mean, it's just a game, but hopefully it'll be interesting for everybody. Hopefully people will learn things from me. Hopefully I'll learn more things and get better for the next version of the game and so on. So anyways, I just think it's going to be really interesting and fun to watch. It's the only chance that I get to be a GM, implement all the different things that I did, that I mentioned in my management strategy for NHL GM series that I did. So, because I'm not managing a franchise in real life, so this is the closest I get, and I mean, it's not really even all that close at all, but whatever. It's fun for me. It's most interesting to me, so I hope it's going to be interesting to you guys. And then, yeah, otherwise the be a pro mode. I'm only going to do it once a week. I'll start that next round. What I think I'm going to do is kind of save most of my gameplay for just my own free time, because I just don't think it's going to be as interesting just to watch game after game. So what I think I'm going to do with that series is I'll play a bunch in my own free time, and then maybe just do the playoffs for streams. So what I'll do, at least to start, is I'll probably stream all the before being drafted stuff, and then stream until I get to where I'm kind of locked into my roster spot as a first line player is the goal. And then after that, I'll probably just sim through chunks and then just show you playoffs in bits here and there. Maybe one a game against a good team each, and then sim until the next good team and sim. And so something like that is probably the plan for that one. So I won't show it as much. I do think that one's still going to be interesting because I had some really unique goals, some pretty cool goals that I've scored. Still not anywhere close to some of the stuff that I'm sure other people can pull off, but I'll get there. Like I said, I haven't upgraded to the new NHL games until just now, a month or two ago. But I played the old version a long time, so I still at least have some of the skills to be good enough at the game. So I hope that's going to be entertaining too. I think it will be, and especially if I just do it at the interesting times. So that'll make it more exciting and all that. So anyway, so that's all the plans. And then last, as always, any comments, leave them in the comments. Suggestions, same thing. And that's it. So we'll see you tomorrow with the previews and predictions for the conference finals. Another, like I said, in the crazy playoffs that they've been. So we'll see you tomorrow.